in the companies that you've worked for in an HR capacity, do you have any experience in providing accommodations for people with disabilities? Has that been part of your work experience?
Yes. So first of all, our buildings are disability accessible, wheelchair accessible. We also provide special accommodations to those who need it in the interview process as well as throughout their employment. So we do offer those types of accommodations, and we definitely encourage individuals who need those accommodations to say so. Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about, from kind of the human resources perspective, what are some of the benefits of having people with intellectual and developmental disabilities work for you as an employer?
Yeah, so I would say from the employer side, creating a diverse workforce is huge. And it exemplifies that you are an employer that are inclusive and you are invested in the community. So those two things definitely stand out from an employer standpoint, is just having a diverse workforce.
So she worked for a retailer as well for some years. Well, and initially, and another thing as far as experience, like the holiday season's a good time as well, because kids or young adults can get at least temporary experience, because so many places are hiring or have been hiring. And that's kind of how she started out, in a place that she worked at full time for some years. But so she did it through the holiday, like 2 or 3 years. And you started, what did you start doing initially?
I did recovery, so just picking up the clothes from the playroom and putting them back out on the floor and stuff.
So you did that for like, was that 1 year or two? Two. And then you were going to go back again, but you said you're like, I want to
be like,
yeah. And how did they take that at first?
they were like, no. And
Yeah.
But then they was like, okay, we'll try it. And my last day was a bar day. My last day was a Saturday, and then Sunday they had called me. And I was like, dang it, they want me to come back in. And they were like, no, we want to offer you a part-time position. And then after that, I was full-time for a while too. So yeah.
Wow, that's terrific. So
you did that for like 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So really it was kind of you needing to kind of advocate for yourself in that moment to kind of get what you needed and to move forward in that job. And your employer, obviously, through you starting out part-time and working your way up, kind of they learned from you what you were capable of. Like they didn't necessarily know until you kind of told them. So that's kind of interesting.
And even nowadays we're out sometimes and she sees people and they're like, where you been? Or whatever. Or even, I think her uncle works with somebody who used to work there and they were like, oh, I loved working with her. Because in the end, I mean, honestly, she would always go to work. She would never be late, really. But she would always go to work. They'd ask, would you work longer? Or would you pick up another day? So it kind of is its own double-edged sword, because she also was so dependable that they would just keep asking. So for her own mental health, it was kind of like she had to have a balance there as well.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good point. That's true. Yeah. That's a kind of a side of employment that isn't always really addressed, is when you're too dependable and too good and your employer kind of needs, comes to over rely on you because you are good. And that can be, that's another.
And they knew that she would never say no. And so I was getting frustrated because all she would do is go to work and then sleep. There was no life outside of any of that. And so it just, so, I mean, working's great, but there has to be a balance. And even when it comes to benefits and so forth, because I would say, Candace, you got to be careful, with your benefits, because they don't offer you whatever insurance. So we got to really look at that. And so Candace is like, okay. But then they would say, well, can you work? And Candace is like, okay, sure. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think I stress over the other piece of all that more than she ever does. Unfortunately, because I've created a monster. But so it's a work in progress. But they being the government, they don't make it easy to. It's a hard process.
But also, apart from some of those companies who are just restructuring the way that they do stuff to accommodate, there is job coaches, which, you know, I helped one summer as a job coach for Propel. Excuse me. And job coaches, they will go into the job site and they will see, you know, like kind of the work environment and the jobs that are being done, and they will advocate for their client and kind of mediate between the client and the boss, and to make sure that they can, one, be successful doing their job, but also their needs are being met. So I think we should be taking those types of services more. There's also ADHD and ADD coaches, which, you know, would be good for folks who are young adults kind of transitioning, because where you may have a regular life coach and they talk to you about your goals and stuff like that, but it's kind of like you come to them when you need to talk to them.
Okay, I see.
Where an ADHD or an ADD coach is a little bit more proactive as far as initiating the contact, because we understand our clients, and then you're gonna, you know, there's more accountability, and you're sitting there kind of like continuing on what parents in high school and, you know, the education system should have been doing is like, okay, well, this is how you do your schedule. You know, what do we need to put in here? What stuff do you have going on? How can we do this? And instead of telling them what to do, though, you have to draw it out of them. But that also helps them be invested in it and want to live up to it. Whereas if you're just presenting them with a schedule, like, okay, well, here's what you need to do. And they're like, you know, but if you brainstorm it with them, I'm okay, cool, well, this is how many hours we have in a day. We only have 24 hours. Which hours of the day do you work best? Because especially like folks with ADHD and ADD, we tend to be more alert at night or in the evenings. So maybe an evening job is better for them.
I see.
Or maybe the important stuff that they need to do, like homework or clerical stuff that they need to do, because especially a lot of folks are going to be working from home. You know, be honest with yourself about what time of the day you work best. You know, and then try to, if you have other folks in your house, you're going to have to probably coordinate it with it, because not everybody's on the same kind of biological clock.
Yes.
You know, their circadian rhythms are not all the same, but work when you have the best focus.
Would you say that kind of that idea and approach of, you know, not telling someone what to do, but drawing it out of them, helping them do it themselves, is that along the lines of what would be considered like a motivational interviewing kind of style, or motivational? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I would.
Is that because I just, you know, in my learning curve, I'm seeing that motivational interviewing and kind of person-centered planning is a big best practice kind of theme in the support coordination world. And so I'm trying to kind of, in my interviews, kind of talk a little bit to people who might have experience doing that. And what you've just described sounds a lot like that to me, like shifting responsibility, to the person, not doing things for them, but helping them come to their own understandings and decisions.
Right. Well, because once they spend that much time thinking about it, they're emotionally invested.
I think it's important to know that, like, maybe not, like, get familiar with your HR person and who accommodates employees. If you work for like whatever company you work for, it's important to know that they have an accommodation office or somebody that could support you in getting accommodations for yourself. So knowing those people and knowing those offices early matters, and knowing how to get help, how to ask for help is important even before you get the job. And that's a question you could ask. Like, how does your company accommodate? How does your company accommodates people with disabilities, whatever kind of disability they have, you can ask that question.
That's a great suggestion.
I
Thank you.
wish
Yes.
I would have known that as a young person looking for looking for employment. I wish I would have known that.
Do you see the support coordinator / case manager role as playing a part in helping you know how to navigate that and ask those questions? Is that a key? Okay. And you didn't get that advice? No,
because at that time I had a different coordinator because I was switching coordinators. And so I didn't have the same coordinator that I had for 10 years.
Really? Okay. Okay.
And
so there was the break in the continuity of your support.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, that's critical. That seems critical. That you have someone in your corner who's helping you advocate for yourself.
And also because it also depends on the kind of relationship you have with your support coordinator. I'm not saying everybody, because now that I am a full-time employee, and because of all my education and experience, I do not receive benefits in that capacity anymore because I'm overqualified for those benefits now.
I see. So if you had any words of advice for a brand new case manager who, you were meeting for the first time, and this person had 10 other clients they had to help and get to know, and you needed, certain advice or, approvals from them or whatever that you needed in terms of questions you had, what would be a suggestion you would have for that person who's new to the role, but who needs to support you? How could they best support you?
Meet your client wherever they're at, and don't have any expectations. I know that's hard to hear, but don't have any expectations.
Okay.
But that's a major issue I think that most clients have. Because I'm sure if they were to read my case file, they would be a little informed, but not completely informed of who I am and what I am.
Yeah. So basically, I guess to say it another way, your advice would be to don't let the paper file tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Like that you're much more than some, a history of forms and data, that you're a person with a lot more complexity. And so, and I like that, to not bring expectations into the relationship, because you, especially at first, because you don't know this person and you're just getting a sense of who they are and what they want from, not only from a job, but from life.
Yes.
So you're trying to, you need to build that trust with them first.
Yes.
And that relationship.
Yeah, because that's really important. For me as an individual, that's really important. I can't speak for everybody else. And I won't ask you for something I really don't need. I'm not one of those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I ask you, I really do need it. Because honestly, I'm one of the people that like to do stuff for themselves as much as possible for themselves.
Do you think that case managers, part of what they should encourage self-reliance in their clients?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
And each client is very different, but if they could do a little bit, let them do the little bit they can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's on an individual basis.
So kind of the idea of meeting your client where they are,
Yeah.
but also as you begin to develop a relationship and build trust with each other, that having expectations is a good thing.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing you say? You shouldn't
Yes.
give people a free pass. You should hold them accountable and hold them to a certain standard.
Yes.
Okay.
And because a little bit of self-reliance or a little bit of self-autonomy, like it depends on the person though too. It's an individual basis. Like everything else in life, it's an individual basis, and how they feel at that moment and how they feel at that time. It varies.
Mm-hmm.
We have a right to have down days or down moments too. We have a right to have a high moments and high days too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very individual.
Do you see, or I guess the question would be maybe, what part do you see the practice of setting goals, setting employment goals? What do you see that playing a role in the relationship between support coordinator and client? Do you see
what, like
in a more structured way is I guess what I'm getting at.
In a more structured way, I think that would be good. They could add that to their life what do they call it? I forgot.
ISP?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They could add that. But I also think it depends on their support, the individual support team, and the relationship between their case manager and the client.
Okay.
Because honestly, can I just tell you a little anecdote real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
Honestly, most of the case managers I've had in my life, and I've had one since I was like a baby to the age of like, when did I start working? 31. Honestly, to all those case managers, I've only been able to trust 2.
Really?
Yes.
And what were the qualities that?
Because they understood where they understood where me and my family are coming from. And me as an individual outside of my family were coming from.
They understood. Yes, it does. So they
respected that.
Okay.
They respected where I wanted to be in life and where I was going in life.
That makes perfect sense. And they didn't try to impose their expectations on you. They took you for who you were.
Yeah, and they just encouraged me to keep doing what I was doing and supported me with resources.